mechanical pump. Okay, so let me share my slides first. Okay, so is my slide visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So like I said, today's lecture is on heart as a mechanical pump. Okay. So what are our objectives for today's lecture? So we should understand what is the physiological anatomy of the heart. Okay. Then also know about the pathway of blood through the cardiovascular system. This is extremely important. You should know how the blood circulates within the cardiovascular system. You should also know about the heart valves and their functions. They have some very important functions. And we should understand the layers and histology of the heart wall. Right? So these are the things that you will have to pay attention in today's class. Okay. So let us start. So as all of you know, I'm sure that cardiovascular system, the main function of cardiovascular system is basically transportation. Okay, so it is a transport system because it transports and distributes essential substances to tissues and removes the metabolic byproducts. Right, so blood is responsible for delivering oxygen as well as the required nutrients to all of our body's tissues. Right, and the metabolic byproducts that are produced within our tissues, like carbon dioxide and other metabolic products, they are removed through blood because the blood takes them up and they are transported to lungs. If it is carbon dioxide, it is transported to lungs and it is expired out, right? So all of these functions are performed by your cardiovascular system and circulatory system. And also one thing I would like to tell you is that it also participates in some regulatory or homeostatic mechanisms in the body. Okay, for example, regulation of body temperature. This is also a function of cardiovascular system and circulatory system. Okay, and also maintenance of fluid balance, fluid and electrolyte balance is also one of a function of circulatory system. And likewise, adjustment of oxygen and nutrient supply, etc., under various physiological conditions or states, all falls under the function of cardiovascular and circulatory system. Right. So it is a very important system in our body, like other systems. So anyway, so what does this cardiovascular system consist of? So the first thing is blood as the transport vehicle. So obviously blood takes up all the nutrients and oxygen, whatever the requirements of the body's tissues are. These are transported via blood. And also all of the toxic and metabolic byproducts, whatever they are also transported via blood. Right. And it also consists of heart, which acts as a pump. Okay. And finally, it consists of a closed system of blood vessels. Okay, so vessels, these are networks of tubes which act as a vehicle for transporting the, vehicle for blood, let's say. Blood travels through these blood vessels. Right, so these are the major parts of the cardiovascular system. Okay. Right. Now talking about heart, okay, now let us just review a brief anatomy of the heart. I'm sure you have studied this in anatomy, but let me just recap it for you. So what is the size of the heart? It is almost same as our closed fist. It weighs about 300 grams. It lies in mediastinum, and about 2/3 of the mass of the heart lies to the left of the body's midline. So primarily, heart is present on the left side of the chest, right? The pointed apex is formed by the tip of the left ventricle. So I'm sure in anatomy you have learned about the apex and the base of the heart. right? So the tip of the left ventricle forms the pointed apex. And it is directed anteriorly, inferiorly, and to the left. Okay, so in physiology, these are the things that you have to remember. Okay, this is just one picture to show you how the heart looks. So it also consists of some major blood vessels that are associated with it, like aorta, vena cava, superior and inferior vena cava. Okay, the pulmonary trunk, right? So this is about the how the heart looks. And it also has various layers, which we will be talking about. Okay. Again, this is if you were in anatomy lab, you'll be seeing some kind of structure like this. Okay, so this is how it looks. Okay, now let's move to heart chambers. Okay, so heart consists of 4 chambers. I hope all of you know this, okay, because it consists of right and left atria, and it also consists of right and left ventricles. So what is the function of atria? So these receive the blood. Okay, these are the entryway. Whereas talking about ventricle, these pump the blood out. These are the exit chambers. Okay, from here the blood exits out. So these are the 4 chambers that are present in the heart. So looking over here, this is the right side of the heart. This is the left side of the heart. Okay, so here you are able to see this is the right side of the heart and this is the right atrium. Okay, and here you'll be able to see right ventricle. Likewise, here there is left ventricle, left atrium and left ventricle. So there are several valves that are present as well in between these chambers. Okay, valves are like gates, okay, gates or gateways, let's say. They prevent the backflow of blood. Their major function is to prevent the backflow of blood. So right side and left side. Right side consists of right atrium and right ventricle. Left side consists of left atrium and left ventricles. In between these are the atrioventricular valves. Okay, on the right side you have tricuspid valve. Okay, and on the left side you have mitral valve. Okay, and also there is aorta that is associated with the left heart, and the pulmonary trunk that is associated with the right heart. This also has its own valve. Okay, so the pulmonary valve and aortic valve is also present. Okay. Now the most important portion of today's lecture. So you have to remember how the blood moves through the circulation. Okay, circulation loop. So there is 2 kinds of circulation loop or circuits. One is pulmonary circuit and the next is systemic circuit. The short one over here that you see, this is the pulmonary circuit, and the next one, the larger one, this is the systemic circuit. So let us know how blood travels through these circuits. Okay, so let me start from the body's tissues. Okay, so your body's tissues, they undergo metabolism, several metabolic processes, and they are continuously producing carbon dioxide by using oxygen. Right, so carbon dioxide is continuously being produced from the body's tissues, and around the body's tissues, any of your body's tissues, there are several systemic or tissue capillaries present. Okay, so so what are capillaries? Capillaries are the smallest branches of blood vessels, right? I hope you know this. They are usually very porous and fenestrated, and they have very thin walls, and gaseous exchange can easily take place through them, as well as the exchange of many materials like nutrients, ions, etc. Okay. So what happens is, from your body's tissues, the carbon dioxide is taken up by the capillaries, tissue capillaries. Okay, so these tissue capillaries now become rich in carbon dioxide. So they are deoxygenated. Okay, so they become filled with deoxygenated blood. And these capillaries, they coalesce to form venules, then small veins, and then larger veins, and ultimately via the superior and inferior vena cava, what they do is they take this deoxygenated blood to the right atrium. Okay, so from the body's tissues, carbon dioxide is taken up by the capillaries and through the larger veins, and then finally through superior and inferior vena cava, this deoxygenated blood is taken to the right atrium. Okay, from the right atrium, it goes to the right ventricle, right? To the right ventricle, and from the right ventricle, it is then pumped to it is taken up by the pulmonary arteries. Okay, so pulmonary arteries, they carry deoxygenated blood from the right heart. Okay, from right ventricle, they go to the pulmonary arteries, and these pulmonary arteries again take the deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Okay, so the pulmonary arteries divide and redivide and they form pulmonary capillaries. You can see over here. Okay, and these pulmonary capillaries now, they are involved in gas exchange. Okay, I hope all of you know that lungs contain small air sacs which are known as alveoli. Okay, air-filled sacs known as alveoli are present inside the lungs. Okay, and these alveoli contain air that is rich in oxygen. Right, so this oxygen is then taken up by the pulmonary capillaries from the alveoli, and carbon dioxide is released into the alveoli from the pulmonary capillaries. Okay, so the pulmonary capillaries now become oxygenated. The blood here becomes oxygenated because oxygen is taken up from the alveoli into the pulmonary capillaries, and carbon dioxide from the pulmonary capillaries is taken into the alveoli. So you can see this blue signifies deoxygenated blood. The red portion signifies oxygenated blood. Okay, so now the blood has become oxygenated, and this oxygenated blood is taken up by the pulmonary veins. Okay, so pulmonary veins carry this oxygenated blood into the left atrium. Okay, so left atrium now receives oxygenated blood, and this passes to the left ventricle, and from the left ventricle through aorta and many of its branches, it is distributed all over the body's tissues. This oxygenated blood. Okay, so it travels through many different branches to different organs and different tissues of the body, and the tissues now take up oxygen from this oxygenated blood in the capillaries, and again they use the oxygen, they form carbon dioxide, and again carbon dioxide is then taken up by the venous portion, and again the same process continues. I hope it is clear to everyone, this process. I think it is simple enough. Okay, so this short circuit, this you can see over here, from the right heart to the lungs and back to the left heart, this is known as pulmonary circuit or pulmonary circulation. Okay, and the next, from the left heart, see, through aorta, from the left heart to different body tissues, and from the body tissues back to the right heart, this loop is known as systemic circulation. Okay, so pulmonary circuit is blood to and from lungs, means from the right heart to the lungs and back to the left heart, whereas systemic circuit or systemic circulation means blood from oxygenated blood from the left heart then to different body's tissues, and deoxygenated blood back to the right heart. Okay, so this is all about the different types of circulation. I'll explain this to you once more because it needs to be very clear. You cannot have any confusion. Okay, here. So what happens? Let's take another picture and try to understand. Okay, so from all over the body, deoxygenated blood is being carried through the veins, and then from superior and inferior vena cava, they are being taken to the right atrium. Okay, from right atrium, they go to right ventricle. Then from right ventricle, it is taken up by the pulmonary artery. Okay, and the pulmonary artery, the arteries, they take it to the lungs. And the pulmonary artery divides and redivides to form pulmonary capillaries. Okay, and in the pulmonary capillaries, the gaseous exchange takes place because it is next to the alveoli in the lungs. Okay? So alveoli in the lungs, they contain oxygen-rich air. And this gaseous exchange takes place such that the oxygen from the alveoli enters the pulmonary capillary blood, and the carbon dioxide from the pulmonary capillary blood diffuses into the alveoli. Okay, so the blood becomes oxygenated in the lungs. Then this oxygenated blood is carried by the pulmonary veins into the left atrium. Right, and from left atrium, it goes to left ventricle, and then it passes through the aortic valve, and through the aorta and its branches, it is distributed all over the body's organs and tissues. So this is the basic pathway of the blood through heart. So there are many things that you need to know over here, which you will learn later when you are learning cardiac cycle, about how all of these contractions take place, what is systole, what is diastole, all of that. But this circuit you cannot forget. Okay? Right. Okay, so once again, to reiterate, see, to right atrium, superior vena cava and inferior vena cava carry deoxygenated blood. Then to right ventricle, from right ventricle, the pulmonary capillaries carry the deoxygenated blood to lungs. Then oxygenation takes place in lungs, and the pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood to left atrium, and from the left ventricle passes to aorta and to different parts of the body. Okay. So there are some differences between right ventricle and left ventricle. Right now, what I want to tell you is about the pressure system. Okay, so the pulmonary circulation or the pulmonary circuit, it operates at a very low pressure. Okay, so there is very low pressure in the pulmonary circulation, whereas systemic circulation, it operates under high pressure, and there is high resistance to blood flow. That is why the left ventricle has to work much harder than the right ventricle. Because if you remember, from right ventricle, blood passes to the pulmonary artery, right? So to the pulmonary circulation where the pressures are very low. Whereas from the left ventricle, the blood has to pass to aorta, okay, where there is systemic circulation and the pressure is much higher. So there is high resistance to blood flow, and the left ventricle has to work much harder than the right ventricle, and that is why it is a much more powerful pump, and it is 3 times as thick as right ventricle. As you can see over here as well, see the right walls of the right ventricle, they are quite thin, right, whereas the walls of the left ventricle, they are very thick. Okay. So we talked about the systemic circulation as well as the pulmonary circulation. Now what happens to the heart? Okay, so heart also has to receive blood. Its tissues also have to get oxygen and the required nutrients, right? So that is done by coronary circulation. Okay, so coronary circulation, like other circulations, it consists of coronary arteries and coronary veins. So this will be further elaborated to you in the upcoming lectures, okay? Okay, so I hope the circuit is clear to everyone. And if there is a doubt, you can ask me, okay? You can either message me or even ask me during class. So let us go to the layers of the heart wall. So up to now we have talked about what are the different chambers of the heart, what are the valves that are present, right? And how the blood travels through the heart and through the circulatory system. Now let us talk about what are the different layers that are present in the heart wall. Okay, so basically there are three layers. The outermost layer is known as pericardium. So here you can see, I hope this section is taken and it is enlarged. So the outermost layer, this is the pericardium. Here it is over here, see this pericardium. Then in the middle you have myocardium, and finally the ones that are lining the heart chambers are the endocardial cells. Okay, so here there is endocardium. Now, endocardium is actually the innermost lining and it is continuous with the tunica intima of the vessels. So I hope you know that there are different layers that are contained in the blood vessels. I hope you know about tunica adventitia, media, intima. Okay, so as you have seen previously, there are many big vessels that are associated with the heart, and this endocardial layer, it is continuous with the intimal layer of the blood vessels as well. Okay, talking about the myocardium, myocardium is the main muscular layer. Okay, so myocardium of atria and ventricles actually are not continuous with each other. Okay, these myocardium of atria and ventricles, they are not directly continuous to each other. There is actually a fibrous tissue that is present in between them. So this has some implications. You will understand this when you know about the conducting system of the heart. Okay, and as I've already mentioned, the myocardium of left ventricle is thicker than that of the right ventricle because the left ventricle has to push blood against the high pressure of systemic circulation. Right? And pericardium, it is the outermost connective tissue layer that forms a sac. Okay. Now endocardium, if we elaborate endocardium a little bit, endocardium consists of endothelial cells as well as subendothelial connective tissue. Okay, so there are connective tissue that is present as well beneath the endothelial cells. Now it is here that the Purkinje system and the bundle of His system, which you will learn about later, these are parts of the conducting system of the heart, okay, are present. So this has implications because you will understand when you go through the next lecture that the impulse or electrical, let's say electrical impulse, it is conducted from the inner part of the myocardium to the outer part. This is because the bundle of His as well as the Purkinje system, etc., they are present within this subendothelial connective tissue layer, and they move outward towards the myocardium. Okay, they are present somewhere here and then they go outwards like this. That is why the impulse is conducted from the inside to the outside. So this will be more clear in the next class, I think. So anyway, this is about the different layers of the heart, and you should also understand about the different heart valves. Okay, so we have talked about the different chambers. Now I will elaborate about the different valves that are present. Before talking about the valves, let me first talk about the fibrous skeleton of the heart. Okay, I don't know if you've studied this in anatomy, but see over here, I hope you can see in this picture, there is fibrous skeleton that is present. So the heart does not contain any bones, right? But it is attached, all of the components of the entire heart is attached to a fibrous skeleton, right? And within this fibrous skeleton, there are four apertures you can see over here. And what are these apertures? These are the four apertures. This is the mitral valve, this is the tricuspid valve, this is the aortic valve, this is the pulmonary valve. Okay, and the attachment of all of the components is within the fibrous skeleton. All the myocardium also attaches to the fibrous skeleton. Okay, so the fibrous skeleton has some important functions. So firstly, it provides attachment points for myocardium. It provides base for attachment of major arteries. So you know that there are many major arteries involved here. And finally, it also acts as an electrical insulator between atria and ventricles. So I was talking about how the myocardium of atria and ventricles are not continuous with each other, but there is a fibrous layer that is present, right? So this is the fibrous part of the fibroskeleton of heart. And this is very important, okay? The atrial cells and the ventricular cells, they should not be continuous to each other for the proper conduction of impulse. As you will understand in the next class, the atria have to finish contracting first, and only then the ventricles can contract, because blood has to be pumped first from the atria to the ventricles, right? That is why there is a certain barrier that is present between the atria and ventricles, and there is actually only one small conducting tissue known as atrioventricular node, AV node, that is present between these two chambers, okay? But you will learn more in detail about this later. So now let us talk about the heart valves that are present, okay? So like I mentioned, there are two atrioventricular valves, tricuspid and bicuspid. Tricuspid valve is present in between the right atrium and the right ventricle, whereas this bicuspid or mitral valve is present in between the left atrium and left ventricle, right? Then there are some semilunar valves, two semilunar valves. So one is present in the pulmonary artery, which is known as the pulmonary valve. The next is aortic valve, okay, semilunar valves. So what are the functions of these valves? So these atrioventricular valves, tricuspid and mitral, they prevent the backflow of blood from ventricles to atria during systole. Okay, so when the heart is contracting, when the ventricles are contracting, what it does is it prevents the backflow of blood from the ventricles to atria. Let me just show you that picture once more, okay? So here, you see, so there is presence of this atrioventricular valve. This, see here, this is the mitral valve. This is the tricuspid valve. This is not shown clearly. It is actually shown in an open state. But still, what happens is when these ventricles are contracting, blood can regurgitate out from the ventricles to the atria, right? If the valves are not present. So these act as gates, okay? You can just think of them as gates which close to prevent the backflow of blood from the ventricles to the atria. This is the function of the AV valves. Then the next is the semilunar valves or the aortic and pulmonary valves. They prevent the backflow from aorta and pulmonary artery into ventricles during diastole. So this also prevents the backflow of blood, because blood always has to flow in unidirection in the cardiovascular system. Okay, it cannot flow in two directions. Then there'd be regurgitation. We call it regurgitation. Okay, so since it is following this path and going like this, the function of these valves is to prevent the backflow. So we mentioned the atrioventricular valves, which prevent the backflow of blood from the ventricles to the atria during systole. Now talking about the semilunar valves, these prevent the backflow of blood from the pulmonary artery and the aorta, okay, and the aorta during diastole or the filling phase of the heart. Okay. Now for anatomical reasons, the thin and flimsy AV valves require very little backflow to cause closure, whereas the semilunar valves, they are much heavier and thicker. Okay, they require a rapid backflow for a few milliseconds. So what you should remember is that these AV valves are larger but also thinner and more flimsy, weaker. Okay, whereas the semilunar valves, they are heavier and they can withstand more backflow. Okay. So this is a little bit about the different valves that are present. Now, what you also have to remember is that the valves, what do they consist of? What are these valves made of? Okay. So we talked about the valves, their functions. So these valves are made up of a core of fibrous tissue. They consist of connective tissue, which is loose connective tissue, and endothelial cells. Okay, and they have cusps or leaflets, which are normally avascular, except in certain conditions. Okay, usually the valves are avascular, they do not contain any blood vessels, except in cases of some infections like infective endocarditis or something of that sort. They do not have blood vessels except at the base. So the AV valves, they are large and thin. The semilunar valves, they are smaller and thicker. Okay. So because the left ventricle contracts and produces high pressure, so I've already mentioned that the left ventricle has to contract against the systemic blood pressure, right? So it can produce pressures from 110 to 130 millimeter of mercury while contraction. Okay, and because the mitral valve is quite thin, so like I also mentioned, the AV valves are quite thin. So there is a high chance that it will cause bulging of the valve backward toward the atrium during systole. Okay, so now the ventricle is contracting, you see, in the ventricular systole, the left ventricle is contracting and it is contracting and producing a great pressure from 110 to 130 millimeter of mercury. So this might cause the mitral valve to actually bulge backwards. Okay, so it should actually remain closed like this, no? But because of great backflow like this, it can just bulge into the atrium and become incompetent, producing mitral regurgitation. Okay, that can happen. But to prevent this, there are certain structures that are present. Okay, so let me show you. Okay. Okay, so these small tendon-like structures, they are attached to the valve. Okay, and they are then attached to some kind of muscle known as papillary muscle, which is present in the left ventricle. Okay, so to prevent this kind of backward bulging or reverting of the mitral valve due to the high pressure during ventricular systole, there is presence of some small tendon-like structures which are known as chorda tendineae. Okay, they are known as chorda tendineae, and they are attached to the valve, and then they are attached to the papillary muscle. So when the ventricle contracts, the papillary muscles also contract and they keep the chorda tendineae taut. Okay, and that is why there is prevention of bulging or reverting of the valve towards the atrium. Okay, this is present in both of the heart chambers. However, I'm talking about left ventricle here because in the left ventricle there is a much greater chance of this kind of eversion of the flap or incompetence of the valve. Okay, sometimes this can occur in certain conditions like acute infective endocarditis, if there is myocardial infarction exactly in this region. So this might cause the valve to become incompetent. This is known as mitral valve prolapse. Okay, so anyway, this is the function of the heart valves, and you should also remember that there are certain structures that prevent this kind of prolapse or incompetence of the valve. Okay, so let's once more recap what is happening. So blood returning to the heart fills atria, putting pressure against the atrioventricular valves, due to which the atrioventricular valves are forced open. Right, so the blood returning to the heart, meaning the deoxygenated blood brought via the superior and inferior vena cava. Right, so anyway, then the ventricles fill and atrioventricular valve flaps hang limply into the ventricles. Okay, so they hang limply into the ventricles when there is filling taking place, because it has to remain open, right, when blood is being passed on from the atria to ventricles. Then the atria contract, forcing additional blood into the. I'm talking both about the right and the left atrium here. Okay, so the AV valves open when the atrial pressure is greater than the ventricular pressure. Okay, so it can open when there is greater atrial pressure than ventricular pressure. And then the next thing that happens is the ventricles then contract, forcing the blood against the atrioventricular valve cusps. So like I mentioned earlier, so when the ventricles contract, they force the blood against these atrioventricular valve cusps, right? Due to which there is closure of the atrioventricular valves. See here, the atrioventricular valves are now closed. And then the papillary muscles also contract and chordae tendineae tighten. This prevents the valve flaps from everting back into the atria and becoming incompetent, causing prolapse and regurgitation. Okay, so AV valves are closed when the atrial pressure is less than the ventricular pressure. Okay, so I hope all of this was clear to everyone. I would like to ask someone to just explain this part to me. Okay, Saksham, can you do it? Saksham Bhattrai, are you there? Yes, Saksham. Okay, Saksham, can you explain for everyone what is happening here? What happens to the blood? How it travels through the heart and the circulatory system? Yes, Saksham? Are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't hear you properly.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, speak a little bit loudly, okay? So just tell me what happens. Okay, first I'll tell you there is a network of capillaries that is around all of our body tissues, okay, and deoxygenated blood is being carried from these capillaries, okay. So what happens then? Where is this deoxygenated blood taken? Okay. Manish, can you explain? Manish Saulagai, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Manish, so please explain this. Yes.
First of all the deoxygenated blood is collected from the upper part of the body by superior vena cava and from the lower part of the body by inferior vena cava to the right atrium.
Okay.
And through the right atrioventricular valve, it then is passed to right ventricle. And
What
during
is the
the
name of the right atrioventricular valve?
that is a tricuspid valve.
Okay, good. Then?
And then during the ventricular systole, the blood that was collected in right ventricle is transported to pulmonary circulation via pulmonary arteries.
Okay.
And then after it gets oxygenated by lungs alveoli, it then
Okay.
returns to left atrium by the
Okay.
four pulmonary valves,
Veins, yes.
pulmonary veins, and
Yeah.
then through bicuspid or mitral valve and the left atrioventricular orifice, it enters to left ventricle.
Yes.
And during next ventricular systole, it then travels to a different part of body through a systemic aorta.
Okay, very good, Manish. Okay, well explained. Okay, so this is how the blood, this is the pathway of blood through the heart and circulatory system. Okay, so one more thing. Priyanka, are you there? Prabhat Didi Priyanka?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Priyanka, can you tell me why is the wall of the left ventricle much thicker than that of the right ventricle?
Uh, Ma'am, the wall of left ventricle is much thicker in comparison to the right one because it has to pump to the whole body through aorta. So
Okay,
it has, whereas left ventricle, it has to only pump into the pulmonary artery which goes into the lungs. So that's why, in order that blood
okay,
flows systemically throughout the body, it has a powerful pump with
okay.
mm,
And it has to pump against high pressure.
pressure, high pressure. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, good, Priyanka. Okay, I think everyone has understood today's class. Do go back and read through it once more. In the next class, we will be starting the electrophysiology. Okay, so all about the action potential and also the conducting system of the heart. Why is the heart known as syncytium? Okay, how does it operate? All of those things. Okay, so we will conclude today's class here.